Hello, everybody. Oh, we're missing. Somehow Ben is not coming through on Zoom. One moment. Ben, can you say
Hmm.
something?
Hello, check 1 2.
We hear you. There you are. Okay, I fixed it.
Finally, yeah, you
Technical
showed up.
difficulties here already. Hi, everyone.
Hmm.
Um, my name is Michael. I'm here with Ben. I have a little show here called The Messy Desk, and Ben's going to talk to us about his new album today, but want to say hi to the crowd, Ben?
Yes, hello. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm really happy to be on the Messy Desk for the second time to commemorate my album release, Prime. So it's great to see you here today, and we're going to hear some music from the CD, and as well as some other projects I've been working on lately, and as well as you can see some links in the description to fill out the order form, and as well as it's also available to listen to on Apple Music and Spotify. But would be also very happy to send you one of these as well too. And so yeah, and of course, if you have any questions throughout the stream, would love to answer some of those. And other than that, thank you, Michael,
Yeah.
for having me. I'm looking forward to having some fun today.
Please leave a lot of comments for Ben. Ideas, criticisms, questions, anything. We want to respond to them. And we're going to listen to some more music. In the intro, you heard one recording from the album. Oh my gosh, I've got paint on my head. I've been painting my bedroom the last like week, so I've got this is good. So
Right.
this is Ben's second time on the show, and like I guess it's been about a year since you came on last time, right? Something
It
like
honestly
this.
has, and even though that doesn't feel like a very long time, like that was like in a July or something, and now it's already April, and so that's
Yeah,
wow,
it's
it's
kind
going
of
fast.
crazy. It seemed like it was a while ago, which is weird. But yeah, here we are, still in the same situation in some ways. But since
Mhm.
then, you have recorded a CD. So do you want to tell people like the Spark Notes version of what the CD is about?
Right, yeah. So Prime is the title, and that's it's a title piece for Prime Directive, which is written for me by my friend Joseph Donahue for guitar and electronics. But Prime also, of course, means first, and then to even add a third meaning to that title, it's something I heard from the first 21st Century Guitar Conference when Steve Goss in particular said that the guitar is perhaps in its prime right now, and I think that's very true, especially when you have music from like 1990, like the Brouwer Guitar Sonata. That it's considered to be a warhorse in our repertoire, and this is our at the time where I think that we're really starting to really come together as a performer composer relationship, and so we're starting to see a lot of new innovations, new directions with guitar music, and so I figured by programming a list of 21st century Canadian guitar music, the oldest piece by the way is 2004, so everything is 21st century, and so I thought that this collection of repertoire is not just a contrast in character and style and other things, but also represents the guitar I believe in its prime. And in just some ways, it is just about 48 minutes of music that really speaks to me and has been music that I've performed frequently, and also I feel like represents, if anybody is asking for what does 21st century classical guitar sound like, and I hope that by putting Canadian music out there as well, I think that that represents that to me.
Cool. Yeah, I mean it's great. It's great that you're playing music all from the last, well, I guess 2004, so the last like, yeah, 16 years, not that long in the grand scope of
Right.
classical guitar music.
Yeah, that's
So
almost as old as me.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, younger than you. Um, so the yeah, like usually on this stream, I ask every guest to define classical guitar. I've already asked you that. So what I want to ask you is, in place of that, is has in the last year, since I mean you're still a young guy, compared to some of us, has
Mhm.
your view of classical guitar changed or anything, or what was it? Has it changed at all working through this CD and being involved with, for example, the 21st Century Guitar Conference and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously, like I might have said in my last stream, my first actual exposure to classical guitar was through a contemporary concert. It was good old Steve Cowan came back here for the Newfound Music Festival and did like very recent contemporary music. And Shadow Prism was on there, like you heard in the countdown, as well as a piece by Andrew Staniland called Dreaded Sea Voyage with electronics, and as well as a lot of improvisation and things that I never really thought were possible in music just came together in my first sort of sight of classical guitar. And so to me, I thought, well, like, okay, well, this is what classical guitar is. And somebody asked me back then, and I'm not going to say like Albin is in Tedesco. That's what I was going to lean towards. And so by recording a CD that really reflects that, I've definitely still stuck with the idea of the guitar as like an action word or like a almost like a verb, because we can look at obviously the guitar is an object and it's a thing and it has strings and stuff, but and guitar can be looked at as a thing that we do, or a profession, or an occupation in a way that I think invokes some sort of action or something that we do. And so in my perspective, we're still finding new ways of doing the guitar, I guess. Well, like, geez, I should probably put that on, but like different directions and in different ways of learning and just applying it on a daily basis, so that it's still a thing that's happening rather than a solidified like piece of wood, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it also kind of challenges the idea, if you think about classical guitar as like a thing that we're still doing and developing and I guess changing to some extent, it sort of gets away from some people's definition of it, of like the guitar music that's from history that we play, you know.
Yeah, and we definitely still do that. And even in this past year, obviously, I was preparing an audition program, and one of the funny things of my peers in the school of music that I go to is like, Ben, what are all these death dates doing here? But like, for I think from a very a common perspective, the guitar is definitely versatile in that we can go all the way back to like Renaissance era and to today. We have ways of performing music from a lot of the historical periods, and in a way that's also stylistically accurate. And so we definitely still do borrow from the giants as well. Like there's some, I mean, like I'm seeing a new Instagram challenge for the Giuliani arpeggios that are very applicable even to a piece by like Koshkin or something, where you can take that exact pattern and still apply that on a daily basis to really build some fundamentals. And so I think that by going back and being really informed about history as well, and the things that are solidified and absolute, I think that we definitely are more informed in that way.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess my thing has always been that, yeah, I do agree with Steve Goss that like our instrument is in some ways in its prime, and I think meaning beyond just the classical guitar world, because I seriously think that some of the innovations happening with electric guitar in the last 15-20 years, as much as a lot of people like to pretend that the golden age of electric guitar was like in the latter half of the 20th century, there are a lot of younger players and players in sort of progressive genres doing some really interesting, crazy stuff. And the same is true of classical guitar. I mean, you think of like pieces like Shadow Prism, like Jason Noble's notational system, or like yeah, just many composers actually writing for the classical guitar, especially non-guitarist composers, but also guitarist composers, show a lot of development and progression, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on board with this idea that we're in our prime in some ways. It's also interesting that you mentioned going back to the Renaissance, though, because we do steal repertoire from the past. Like, we're not, you know,
Yeah.
we didn't exactly exist in the current form, at least if you think about the instrument itself. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always kind of this interesting thing where, yeah, a lot of classical guitarists play Baroque music, but there was no, you know, quote
Yeah,
unquote
and to like
guitar
be
then. So
very technical. Yeah, because like the guitar obviously was started with like the six strings that would be like really late classical era, like 1820s ish or something like that. So
yeah,
that's technically when the classical guitar would have begun. But we definitely like we utilized the guitar's fretboard and harmonic potential, I guess, to make transcriptions. And so
yeah,
it's in a way we definitely emulate and put ourselves in these and I think in the same way that other instruments do, like for example, like some really modern percussion might play like the Bach chaconne for like the vibraphone or something, and I think that's in the same way, like some sort of appropriating of the other music that's somehow like in the style and maybe not necessarily the sound, but also just something that really allows the performer to bring out the composer's intent in that period.
yeah. I mean, bringing out the composer's intent is also a complex subject.
Mhm.
Halim says, "Hello, Michael. Hello for your guest, Ben Diamond. Always interesting to follow your program. Thank you, Halim. Good to see you again.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
If you have questions for us, please put them in the chat. We're gonna be looking at some interesting contemporary music today. One last thing on this topic before we move on. I think that the classical guitar is especially fertile ground for contemporary music and sort of experimental contemporary music. I mean, I think it's also a fertile ground for writing tonal music as well, and
Mhm.
not that all contemporary music is, you know, non-tonal, but just that it can do both things. But I think that our instrument has a lot to offer composers who want to explore kind of interesting sound opportunities and possibilities. You know,
Exactly. Like I think that's something that we're really starting to really open up about a bit. I think in the general broad community is that we're starting to see a lot more directions with maybe interesting chamber music combinations, or as well as thinking about like scordatura in different ways to benefit this sort of
mm-hmm.
timbre, and as well as a lot of collective new ideas that are really sort of out of the box, I guess, that are out of the norm that are really starting to become really applicable and just bring out different possibilities for the instrument. And whether it is a 12 tone or 145, it's there's still many ways that the guitar, while it definitely has its limitations, there's a lot of freedom within that. I think something that Sergio Assad said was the limitations are freedom for the guitar.
Yeah, and well, every limitation also comes with its own possibilities. So that's the thing. Um, let's listen to some music again, but we're gonna watch a video this time of you playing some music
Okay,
by. So all the pieces on the CD are by Canadian composers, right?
except for Koshkin.
Oh, Koshkin's on the CD. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, he's not on the CD, but the CD itself is Canadian repertoire. But
Ah,
we were
okay, okay.
talking about, oh, the video is for today.
Okay. I was talking about the CD, but so on the CD they're all Canadian pieces, which the link
Yep,
to get the
and
CD.
specifically living composers as well too.
Living composers. Adam Chickality says, "Hey boys, hey Adam, how's it going?"
Hey, Adam. And by the way, he's going to be doing a concert tonight with the Victoria Guitar Society, and he has got an
Nice.
awesome program with that. Looking
Yes.
forward to
Can
it.
Adam, can you put the link for your concert in the chat, please? Because I would like to have it there, but I don't want to go searching for it while I'm hosting a show. So,
Yeah,
um,
we love supporting Uncle Adam.
yeah, Adam is great. We'd love to
Oh,
bring more
sorry.
people to his concert. So, all Canadian pieces and all by living composers, which is super cool. All since 2004, and this Dale Kavanagh piece we're going to hear is on the CD, correct?
This is prelude number three from three preludes. You're going to hear number two on this. So
Okay.
you'll
So
hear
we're listening
three
to number
today.
3, but number 2 is on the CD. Neat.
Yes.
So there are 3 preludes she wrote. Is that correct?
I made the videos today as difficult to explain as possible,
Yeah,
but
they're
of
all. I
course.
was like looking through them. I was like, these are not on the CD, and then you're like, no, they're different pieces. Yeah, as usual,
Yeah,
Ben plays too much music. So
apparently, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so she wrote 3 preludes, and for those who don't know, Dale Kavanagh is a very quite an important figure in the classical guitar world at large. She's a Canadian, um, born right guitarist.
Yeah, that's right, from Wolfville in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia, yeah. But she's now in Germany. She's one half of the Amadeus guitar duo with Thomas Kirchhoff, and she's worldwide performer, teacher, everything, recording artist, etc. Oh, Adam says
Yeah.
to get the link, you'll need to register at the Victoria Guitar Society here. Okay, well, head to the Victoria Guitar Society's website. It's in the comments, and you can see Adam's concert.
Mhm.
Um, Okay, so Dale, yeah, and actually, Dale was I think Dale's concert. It was either Dale or Toma Villito. Those two were the first classical guitar concerts I ever heard. I think it was Dale's. I think that the
Wow.
first thing I heard in concert of classical guitar was Dale Kavanagh playing the Brouwer Etudes, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Right.
which
That's a
is
good first
awesome.
concert.
Yeah, good first concert, and it showed me, and I was playing the pieces at the time, so it was actually really nice. And I got a shout out to Dale for those aren't always played by sort of top level players in concerts, but it's really nice as a student to hear the pieces you're playing played at a very high level. So she had a pretty big impact
Exactly.
on me, and I remember studying with her in the Hamilton Festival, and just yeah, it was pretty life changing. So it's awesome to see you
Exactly.
play her music. That's super cool.
Yeah, she quickly became somebody I found on YouTube to being like honestly one of my heroes, and to see somebody from the Maritimes to have this such a propelling and promising career is definitely inspiring to say the least.
Yeah. So what about this preludes do you like, and do you want to say anything about this third prelude?
Yeah, I think to be in particular about the third prelude, I'm playing all three in my graduation recital, and they're definitely going to return in my regular live concert program when that comes around again. But this third prelude definitely is very much like a prelude in that it's an arch form, which is an ABCBA, which you would commonly hear in like Debussy and a lot of impressionistic sort of forms. And so what really appealed to me about picking these pieces, obviously given that they're Canadian, and that's what I started to do was grow my Canadian repertoire, but the overall soundscape and just the overall I think depiction of this piece was really something I've never really come across before, and then like to really come across these pieces that are sort of like dreamlike and really intimate was something that I think I never really had that much room for in my repertoire, especially in my studies. And so to find a selection of three pieces that are generally shorter but really work well together and create some contrast in a concert was something that was really important to me as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's listen to Dale Kavanagh Prelude number 3, and we'll be back. Come with your questions, everyone, and put them in the chat.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Nicely done, Ben.
Thank you. I was
Yeah.
happy with that recording.
Adam says super mature performance, Ben. Great find.
Thank you. I should also include that. Oh, thanks, and also defined it as well too. Is that that performance was from my workshop back in February with the Acadia University guitar faculty, and that was a really nice time. I recorded a pre-recorded concert. Dale's an Acadia artist in residence, and then I performed some Steve Murphy pieces, which we're going to hear later, which are also on the CD that I premiered. Which he is an Acadia alumni. He studied with Eugene Cormier, and as well as the Koshkin and the Follow Birds. Is that was like a really nice little contrasting program to show the students that I was working with, living composers, and talking about this and that. And so, yeah, that was a day long event during my midterm break, but they were in their school week as well, and so I was able to give a concert and to give a career talk as well too. And surprisingly enough, that school and the history, they have a bit of a connection with Newfoundland. Of course, Eugene being the professor there, he's from Corner Brook, Newfoundland, which is arguably like the second most populated town here in Newfoundland. And as well as Steve going there, he's a Newfoundland alumni from Bay Vert, which is a smaller town, and as well as Matthew Martin, who's another guitar instructor there, who have connected with, who's a good friend of mine now, and he's from Corner Brook as well. And so to see more a little bit more Newfoundland make an appearance, and maybe we're starting to see a lot of these Atlantic communities come together as a guitar community, which is really nice.
That's awesome. Matthew Salas, who actually he had a performance in a piece too in the 21st Century video that I was in, at least the one where I played Shadow Prism. He's asking, are North American / Canadian composers free to some extent from the weight of European musical history? And then in brackets, enjoyed the prelude.
Right. It's that one's definitely like when you look at numbers and history and stuff, like Canada being founded, I'm going to put in massive quotation marks in 1867, and so when you look at like exactly right, yeah, that's a big cup of tea. But like when you look at the music being written then, and it's the overall foundation of like history. This was really late Romantic era when like Wagner was around, and so when you look at like the earliest sort of traces of Canadian classical music, I think it definitely more resembles like when we had like Jacques Hétu and Claude Vivier running around and doing their thing, and so we were already, I guess, immersed with new progressive
Yeah,
ideas and
I
things like
don't
that.
feel I don't think that that's necessarily true that we're free to the weight from the weight of European musical history. Not what you're saying, but this idea that we could be free from the weight of European musical history. I mean, I think classical music in Canada has been overwhelmingly until recently quite European based, you know.
Definitely.
So I don't think that's really true. I don't know though. I'm not a composer, so it could be that
Right.
composers feel less restricted. But
Hmm.
I also don't know how much composers in Europe are necessarily restricted by the weight of European musical history. Uh,
Yeah, and I think that like looking at it like institutionally, obviously, like like the general I think layout of things, we definitely more resemble America in that like just the overall like college like programs and things like that. Like you've obviously had a very different master's degree than what I'm about to do, and like based on
right.
like what the
Okay.
focus.
I will say that as a guitarist, I feel like in Canada it's more normal to play contemporary music.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
for sure.
but that's classical guitar, which is a small niche, and Canadian classical guitar, which is even a smaller niche. So I'm not sure if that's just because we're a weird little small niche, or if that's a Canadian thing. Um,
Right.
you know, Adam says institutionally we are still tied to the 19th century here. Yeah, that's probably true. But at the same
Hmm.
time, Adam, like, okay, to be fair, I haven't gotten to know too many composers in Europe since I moved here, but like, I in Canada, at least the composers I know were quite open and experimental, and it wasn't sort of, I don't know. Maybe someone can weigh in
Hmm.
who knows more about this than me.
And especially with guitar, given that like I said, we're in our prime and we're doing all of these new music things, but like somebody that plays a different instrument might have a completely different answer too.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing too. I think like in classical music, all of the like, and at least in the last 15, 20 years, I would say that maybe the trends are more instrument to instrument than country to country in a way. I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah, there's all kinds of factors that would have gone into the overall play of things, but generally, I mean, classical music is very much in like the high society in some ways, in that like you have competitions that are like donor based, and there's a lot of like institutions that we definitely resemble from hundreds of years, perhaps.
yeah, Adam says yes, but I'm talking about formal music education, not what's going on in the professional world. Ah, okay, I understand. So, but Adam, are you talking formal music education as in like conservatory programs for like kids and teenagers, or are you talking also like bachelor's and master's programs? Because at least my experience is in Canada for guitar in bachelor's and master's programs, it still is more common to see contemporary music being played.
Mhm.
Steven de Thomas says, we are more conservative. He's saying Europeans because he's Dutch and lives in Germany. We are more
Cool.
conservative, maybe also because of our long and old history in music and education, plus minus 500 years. I mean, that's maybe true, but also Europe is a general term. If you look at Scandinavia and like some of those northern European, like very much northern European countries, what the guitarists there are doing, like in Norway and Finland, there is a lot of new music among classical guitarists I know from there.
I'm taking mental notes right now just in case I decide to go across the pond.
Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, like, Finnish and Norwegian guitarists. So many of them are playing contemporary music almost exclusively. So, anyways,
Wow.
but that could also be a generalization. Adam says university. Okay, yeah, interesting. My
Mhm.
experience is that at least among guitarists that I know, programs here are more conservative and less
Right. And
contemporary.
even right from the get-go, one of the articles I read around like last fall that was really inspiring, written by Gigi, was the overall like audition requirement sequence being very European based. Like if I wanted to audition somewhere, it's like almost the norm to prepare like almost half of your program as Baroque and 19th century. So then there's
Yeah,
definitely still a tie to like very old tradition in that way.
that's true. Okay, yeah, that's true. And I guess maybe I have a really messed up sample size because I know so many Canadian guitarists who I've gravitated towards being friends with who play contemporary music. Maybe I just those are my friends, and I sort of so it's hard to see that
Yeah, like me.
yeah, like you exactly. Um, at the same time, yeah, that's okay. That's true. And Canadian programs generally, Matthew is asking, are Jimi Hendrix and Miles Davis cooler than Bach? It all depends what you mean by cool, I guess. Um,
Popular, I guess.
Popular, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I love all three. Adam says, yes, you are biased, Mike. Just accept it. Okay, well, as long as I'm biased. Uh, biased
The
towards
first thing is
contemporary music.
acceptance.
Yeah. I mean, I love traditional repertoire too. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's so fun.
I thought Gigi's article was interesting. I kind of wish that it had focused also on the concept of like beyond just the countries or the sort of identity characteristics that the people are from. If it also would include like this idea that audition requirements, especially for master's programs, I don't think should be so restrictive for the reason that at that level you want students to develop an artistic identity, right?
Exactly.
If I was running a
Yeah.
program, I would want people to play all Baroque music if that was the artistic identity they wanted to sort of like refine and work towards at that level.
Mhm. And then I think it's up to the jury to be like really vulnerable artistically and very open to that. And that's a
Yeah.
sign of a good teacher, somebody who's well rounded that can bring out the best in the student that has a bit of a niche. And so I think also one of the things that made me happy about the last stream is that you said it's very nice to see somebody my age, I guess, already have a niche and working with living composers. And so, and
Yeah.
if I had it my way, that would be my audition program. And I'm happy to also see that GG, Ben Verdery, and other professors have actually changed their audition requirements in a lot of ways that maybe more
Yeah.
vaguely represent contrast, because I think contrast is important, of
Mm,
course, especially as we want to become really good educators. So like and one thing I thought about recently is there much of a balance between like being very specific and having a being well rounded, or like how does
yeah,
this
that's
work, or
no,
what?
I was gonna say it's a balance because you want a student, especially at a bachelor level, especially well, it sort of depends, I guess, what level people are coming in at, but you want people to be well rounded to an extent when they come out of your program, so it's not like they have some missing area of their like expertise, right? But then you also want people to develop identity, and I just feel like I feel like I repeat myself every single week on the show, but we need to encourage younger players to have that drive to find an identity artistically, and that could be a mix of things. It doesn't have to be like pick one niche, but just um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's. I agree with you. I guess what I'm saying is I think that Gigi and others are right about the problematic nature of just requiring certain composers over and over again on like a audition requirements. Um,
Right.
but I don't know if the solution is to require other things. I think the solution is to try to pick candidates who already show a propensity for having a unique artistic identity that they really explore and develop. That's one thing I appreciated about my time here with Carlo in Maastricht. Carlo Marchione is that he. Yeah, Adam says my niche changes every week. That's true. That's
It
total.
does.
That is also great. But Carlo's thing was like when I auditioned and applied, and even when I asked him to give advice on my repertoire choices for the master's degree, he's like, "You're a master's student at this rate, at this level. You already have like the foundations, or you should." So his point was like, "You decide what you want to do artistically, and I help you try to achieve that." And I thought that was a very refreshing approach because I didn't sort of feel like I was being forced in one direction at that level. It was sort of like he was there to help me realize what I wanted to,
Hmm.
which is different than some programs where it's like, okay, you're gonna play Bach, you're gonna play Bach's lute, like suite, cello suite or lute suite, and you're gonna play, some Tedesco, and you're gonna play the Aranjuez and whatever.
Right, in this
So
like 12-minute romantic piece.
yeah. That being said, my other teacher in my master's at UBC, Daniel Bolshoi, made us all play the Aranjuez, and some of us sort of, I think, slightly resented him for it. But then I actually think I'm glad he did that, because if I ever, when I get concerto opportunities, it's gonna be that one most likely. Although actually, the one time I did get a concerto gig, it was for the Tedesco, oddly. But it is smart to know that piece, because you might
Yeah.
get called, and it's like, if you already have played it, it's not nearly as much work. So I don't know.
Right, like Jason Vio calls them Aaron West gigs, and then he's like, "Okay, time to brush this up again and put it in the microwave."
Exactly. Yeah. Anyways, we got a little bit off here. Steve says, "Hi guys, I'm walking to the hardware store to buy a new paint roller because I broke mine and I have to paint all day before a deadline. I wish I could watch this live and join in. Have to watch later. Love you all." Thanks, Steve. We love you too.
Oh, my future teacher, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You're gonna
Another
go.
guitarist
You're gonna.
painting the room. Every guitarist is painting the room now.
Yeah, Steve. I've got paint all over my hands from painting the bedroom all day. So instead of practicing, so I know your pain. Staven says, "We love your recording of Capitalist Arabe." Yes, I do like to play the classics. Okay, I do play Capriccio Arabe.
Yeah,
I do
Capitalist
like
Arabe. That's brilliant.
Capitalist Arabe. Yeah. John Cesar says Ben should be a radio host slash announcer. Totally has voice and style for it. There you go, Ben. New career.
Oh, style. Thank
Yeah.
you. Me and John will collaborate then, because he
Yeah.
is definitely that.
Yeah, John, just get Ben to like voice your videos. Your new YouTube videos. It'll be good.
Hmm.
And sorry, on Adam's point of saying my niche changes every week, I actually have a huge amount of respect for players who play a wide range of music. I also do. I mean, I play Dowland. I love to pair early music with contemporary music. It's a nice
It
um,
is.
bracketing anyways.
And like I think that really demonstrates, and to move on to something else, obviously I think that that also shows a lot of, like, I think artistic awareness and expressive talents of the musician then too, like in a way that's
Yeah.
not just like I'm going to pick this music because it's written in 1700 something. It's because this piece speaks to me and I'm going to include it in my repertoire. And so finding a performer that has a lot of music that speaks to them, that's usually the people that you want to buy their CDs and go to their concerts, because it's something different and it's something unique and you can tell right away.
Yeah, and it's not about being one dimensional. I don't mean to sound like everyone needs to pick one thing that they do only, It's just about, like, I guess what I'm saying is the less that we can as educators encourage students to pick the same pieces, the better.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's an institution that we're going to break down, because like one thing I said before, I think on Dan's stream, with the concert for the end of time, is that we have like the word conservatory, but that's just an action word for conservation or conserving. And so that's an example of one sort of boundary that we're kind of breaking, I guess, by just allowing the performer, who's obviously very educated at this rate, because even before we do degrees, we have like at least 10 years of experience of playing this instrument, or doing things in music. So it's not like we're in a position where we're not, I guess, our opinion isn't valid, and our perspective isn't valid in that way.
Yeah, most of us have that much education before. I had like a year of education before starting my degree, but I was in a very strange situation compared to most. Yeah, but it's true. I mean, on guitar education, on guitar, obviously. Brent Crawford says, "Tuning out while cleaning the barbecue." Hey guys, hey Brent, nice to see you. Everyone's doing, like, Steve is painting, Ben is.
Yeah,
Brent
look
is
at us
cleaning.
guitarists doing our chores.
Yeah, exactly. I was painting the bedroom today. Nice. And Adam says, "Yep, Ben, literally, that's exactly how you will be successful. Your pieces will pick you, not the other way around." Amen. Okay, since we've gotten like way off the beaten track of your actual CD, we're going to do the listening test now. And usually the
Oh,
listening test on this show is guitar music. There is a little guitar music on this listening test, but this listening test is actually going to be contemporary Canadian, or not contemporary, but Canadian classical music. Not necessarily contemporary, a lot of it is. Canadian classical music, generally. So I had to do a little research for this, I'll admit. and I'm interested to see if you recognize these composers of pieces, Ben.
That'd be kind of awesome even if I got a couple.
It would be awesome. Although in the end, we might just end up like asking questions of the audience if they know anything about these composers, or I'll relay what I do know. So it'll be a
Yes, let's
little
all learn together.
learning opportunity, learning together. Exactly. And Matthew Salas says, I can recommend English lute music, Dowland, Robinson, Cutting, etc. Yeah, I actually went through. Funny enough, during the last year of my second master's, I had been through 10 years of school at this point, and I was just exhausted by choosing a new program every year. And last year, during the middle of the year, I didn't have any early music on my program except for the Chacon. And I was like, I went through this month where I was obsessed with Dowland, and all I listened to was Dowland. And I started learning Dowland stuff, even though it wasn't on my program, and it was a bad idea because I really should have been preparing for my final recital. But sometimes you just get obsessed with the composer, and you have to learn that music.
Yeah, sometimes it'd be like that.
Yeah. Um, Sorry. Adam says, I'm not doing anything else like painting or barbecuing or walking. I'm sitting here listening to the stream attentively. We appreciate your attention, Adam.
And hopefully warming up for his concert, which is going to be great. And I'm gonna we're gonna plug his concert again.
Yeah, warming up.
Did you know Adam's doing a concert?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's do this listening test. All right, number 1. This is a guitar piece, so I'm just curious if you get this. Wait, I have to share my audio with you. You can see how organized I am here, guys. Share.
Lots of clickings.
Yeah, lots of clicking. Share computer audio. There we go. Okay. Oh, I made Zoom go away. That's not good. All right, everybody. We are in business. Okay, number 1. Any idea?
That sounds a lot like one of the movements from the Hinastera Sonata.
It's not, though. This is Canadian, remember.
It's Canadian. Okay.
I'll place.
Okay, now I have a guess that it's potentially one of two things, but I don't want to run out of guesses, so I need
Okay,
to
I'm gonna go later in the piece. This is a pretty deep cut, I have to say.
Yeah. It's
I can give you some clues. Do you want some clues?
Sure.
This is a originally Swiss composer who became a naturalized Canadian citizen.
Okay.
This was the first ever commission for the GFA.
Oh, I'm getting a lot more ideas now. Does the last letter of the composer's the first letter of the composer's last name begin with V?
No.
Okay.
It's not that person. It's a very sneaky way to not guess. This composer was a student of Kodai.
Okay.
Former faculty at University of Quebec.
Trying to think of all the GFA commissioned pieces.
This is from like the 80s, I guess. So
yeah, this is an old one. It's not that one.
I can play a little more of it. Any idea?
Is this on a? I might try and get some other things and do a process of elimination for the player and stuff. But is this on a Naxos CD?
Nope, self-produced CD.
Okay. Right. Yeah, and so I'm just starting to think about like the sound and of the actual CD itself.
The
player.
The player is in Ottawa, if that helps.
Oh, okay. More ideas. Is it Emily Shaw?
It's Emily Shaw, yes, playing.
Okay, and this has to be from. I'm starting to get fireworks now, but this is right. This is
the piece is called piece is called Arabesque.
And it's oh okay, yeah, I definitely have heard this CD before too, so I'll take 1 point for at least
Okay for Emily Shaw. It's by Anne Lauber.
Cool. Yeah,
John Lover. Yeah.
that's the one to listen to again.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew this was a GFA commission, but I didn't know it was the first one. At least when I searched the list of GFA commissions, this was the first one listed in 1984, I think.
Yeah, what are the odds it's a Canadian piece?
Yeah, it's cool. Okay, I'm curious what you think of this next one.
He was a boy, she was a girl.
Any idea?
I just got hit in the face by like a Family Channel show, but like, oh my gosh, it's like a Canadian band, obviously. So like,
Yeah. No. Okay, I guess Avril Lavigne counts as a Canadian composer. I don't know.
wow, yes, I really appreciate it. Yes, that's. I'm gonna actually I'm gonna ask Steve to teach me that one next year.
Yeah, national treasure, right? Okay, we're moving on. Just wanted to do that there. Okay, this next one, let me know what you think of this. Ominous sounding piano.
Awesome.
Okay, we'll go to a later section. Any idea?
This totally sounds like a concerto.
It is a concerto. It's a piano concerto. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get 1 point for the piece because piano concerto number 2 by
Jacques too.
Jacques 2. Yes, very good.
I know that he has obviously writes a lot of guitar music, but like I love his piano music.
I mean, a lot of guitar music. He wrote 2 pieces.
Right. Is this player gonna influence the points?
Sure, if
Or
you
the-
can get if you can
yeah.
guess the player.
I mean, I could just be like, oh, okay, Canadian pianist Glenn Gould, but like, it's not that.
I didn't know who this pianist was, but if you want
Okay.
to try and guess it, you can.
I don't know.
It's Jean-Philippe Silvestre.
Okay. Let's have some more learning.
Some more learning to do. So yeah, it's Jacques 2. It does sound very much. It sounds a little bit like some of the stuff in the guitar suite. It's very like octatonic kind of.
Yeah, the rhythm as well.
Sorry.
The rhythm as well is what I really just kind of got like like the whole orchestration.
Yeah, it sounds like some parts in the finale of the guitar suite.
Yeah, and I remember really recently listening to my friend Chris Dabib play the guitar concerto, and so that's actually what I thought it was for a second, but just with the piano.
Yeah, nice. Benjamin Tint says, "Ask Ben how many symphonies Brahms wrote." Also, hi you two. Hi Ben. So how many symphonies did Brahms write?
If it wasn't for our hilarious time on the Lone to Guitar podcast, I would say 4. But before I said 9, because this shows how much I know about like romantic era music. Because I thought that Brahms was like because he must have been one of those people that like wrote 9 symphonies and then like crossed the bridge. But like no, it's like wrong. Brahms wrote 4, and so then that was a funny moment. We did this like roundtable podcast on the Lone Guitarist with a bunch of undergrads, and so I'm looking forward to that. And also, hi Ben, nice to see you.
Nice, yeah. Ben's gonna come on this show sometime this summer or in the next few months. So this will be great.
Yay.
Yes, so Jacques 2, very good detecting the Jacques 2 sound world, orchestration, etc. So I guess for the Anne Lauber, you get 1 point for guessing Emily. For this one, you get 2 points because you said Jacques 2 piano concerto. So
right.
Okay, next one. We are gonna listen to this. It's gonna cut in the middle, so. Any idea?
This sounds like an electric guitar ensemble.
It is. I can play also a later section if that helps. Wait, a later section. Something like this.
Oh,
Hmm?
maybe this is this written by Tim Brady?
No, but it does have. It actually was premiered in a concert alongside some of Tim's pieces.
Okay, so that would be that concert in the 21st century.
Nope, this was one in Vancouver.
Oh, okay. Maybe this is written by Jordan Nobles.
Nope, close, but
Oh, I'm
no
making
cigar.
good guesses.
You're
But
making good guesses, but you're not quite there. This composer is Vancouver based.
okay. I'm obviously not getting like the title or anything, but it's probably like an interesting title, isn't it?
It's called Under an Orange Sky.
By Nicole Lise?
No, by Alfredo Santa Anna.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
he's pretty well known like Vancouver based guitarist. He's a friend of mine, but he like has pieces that have been read and played by the VSO and
Nice.
VSO and stuff. Anyways, he has great music and he wrote a super cool piece for electric guitar ensemble. It's like semi aleatoric as you could probably hear.
Yeah, I can hear the indeterminacy.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's that was like I think that's a live recording. They did that in a concert with like one of Tim's pieces. I think Tim was there actually.
Right.
And it was like it was one of those things where they placed the guitarists in different places in this big library space that was kind of stone.
Yeah,
or
like an
something.
installation.
Yeah, so it was kind of cool. Anyways, I thought maybe you would have heard that piece because it was like sort of weird guitar contemporary music piece. Super
Right.
cool.
Usually I do.
Yeah. It's a super cool piece. And Steve says replying to Adam Chicklety, your trophy is in the mail. Amazing. Okay, sorry. 0 out of 3 on that one.
Okay.
Next is this piece. I'll play a later section too so you can hear more of the texture. Any idea?
I was so close to guessing that this was from a movie, but I'm gonna pass on that.
No, it's not. It's another Vancouver-based composer.
That I didn't guess yet?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. I know a Vancouver-based composer by the name of Jocelyn Morlock.
That's it. It's Jocelyn.
Nice. I
Yeah.
think my friend Holly Winters studies with her in some capacity. Maybe I'm not sure if she's a faculty at the UBC, but yeah, they work together.
I'm not sure either, but yeah. So this is one of Jocelyn's pieces for cello and percussion. It's very beautiful.
He has an amazing piece for guitar and alto flute as well. I love listening to that.
Oh, Jocelyn has a piece for guitar. Oh, I didn't know.
And with a flute, yeah.
With alto flute, she probably wrote it for like Adrian Verdejo and Mark McGregor then or something.
Right, yeah. But
I don't know if do you know Adrian? He like kind of does a lot of like contemporary electric guitar music, which is cool.
if not, then I should do the
should-
Instagram
yeah.
thing as I do.
Yeah, you should look him up. He's got some super cool recordings out there.
Yeah. And this sounds like something for vibraphone and cello.
It's cello and percussion. Yeah, I guess. Are there other forms of percussion in it? I'm not certain. It might just be. Yeah, no, it just sounds like vibraphone. Yeah. The piece is called Shade. It's on her album, which is on Spotify.
Neat.
Halcyon is the album. Or Halcyon. I can never remember how to pronounce that word. Anyways. Yeah, Jocelyn Morlock. Very good detection there, Ben.
I know some things.
You know some things. 1 out of 3. Okay, next one. Any idea?
I love choral music, and I also really like Canadian choral music. So, the one that really comes to my mind, but it doesn't really sound like something Schaefer would write. Is it Armory Schaefer?
No, it's not Schaefer.
Good. Okay, I'm happy it's not because I was gonna say for a second. Um, yeah. So it
Do you want
sounds
to hear
like
a little
an
more?
upper voice ensemble. So I have a couple ideas actually. Just let
I'll
me
play
think.
I'll play a little more
Yeah,
and then you can think.
sure.
Any idea? Are you enough of a nerd to get
I,
this?
I was about to guess that this was a woman's choir, but it's no. I heard a whole bunch of other things in there. So,
Yeah.
um,
It's
is
it's not a it's a composer you know, but you may not know as a Canadian composer. To be honest, I didn't know this composer was Canadian until someone told me. Um,
okay. Hmm,
this is for sure the most famous composer on this list, for sure.
for sure.
Yeah, like way more famous
Avril
than like.
Lavigne.
Sorry, no, not. Oh, sorry. Excluding Avril Lavigne. Excluding Avril
Okay,
Lavigne.
good. Thanks.
Actually, he might even be more famous than Avril Lavigne. It's possible, actually, at this point.
Oh my goodness. Like,
Um, it
not
may
not
or may not. He may or may not have written this music for something to do with, like, for a film. Maybe
Howard Shore.
Howard Shore. Yes, very good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think about like the work that the Ottawa Guitar Trio does with his transcriptions, and so I was like, oh well,
exactly.
then more famous than Avril Lavigne, obviously excluding Avril Lavigne, but for sure the most out of
Yeah.
everybody else so far. So
I feel like now maybe more. Well, no, probably more people still know who Avril Lavigne is, but at the same time, I feel like Howard Shore's a little more relevant right now. I don't know. Anyways, we're not going to go into
yeah,
that.
with streaming and Disney Plus and stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't realize he was Canadian until Nathan told me because he was saying at least we have one Canadian composer on our upcoming CD kind of thing. So yeah.
Nice.
Anyhow, but I thought this was a good Lord of the Rings track to pick because it's not the tradition. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
have any of
if
the
I had to
normal.
guess a movie, it
Yeah,
would be that one.
yeah, but it doesn't have any of the like sort of leitmotifs that you know that you would just immediately recognize as Lord
Right,
of the
like The
Rings.
Ring.
Yes, but I do love this track. Super nice.
Hmm.
Great writing by Howard Shore. Okay, next one. This. Any idea?
It's interesting and modal and kind of minimalist.
Yeah.
That's my ideas, but um, yeah.
I know I'm
Any guys I can
biased,
hear?
but it's another West Coast composer because I'm biased. Although this composer lives in
Right.
Toronto, so that helps.
Wow, you're from the prairies.
Yeah, but I studied in
Uh,
Vancouver. That's the thing.
right.
So
Even more, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm. Can I maybe hear a little more?
sure.
Yeah.
Any idea?
Hmm. If the composer is living, then it's gonna make it a little bit more difficult than to guess for some reason. But yeah, so they're from or living in based in Vancouver. So
Living in Toronto, but from Vancouver.
right, yeah, I totally forgot that. Um. Oh, Bob Bauer.
No. This composer has a lot of music in the RCM piano syllabi.
Okay. Right.
In
Let me
case you're
think.
just super familiar with the piano
In case I'm
syllabus.
super familiar with that, right?
Sorry, this is not very
Which
helpful.
we all should be, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
The messy desk guitar stream, but yeah, I'm actually a fluent pianist this whole time.
Yeah. Do you want me to just tell you?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a composer named Alexina Louis. She's from Vancouver.
Nice.
And she's a Chinese Canadian composer. And this is played by Susan Chen, who is a pianist in America right now, but from Hong Kong originally. So it's a cool CD.
Right.
Yeah, so Alexina's music is great. I guess we've got like a couple more here. Here's a guitar piece for all the people who are listening who are guitarists.
Phew.
And then a little later on. Yeah, so I just wanted you to hear it's not just guitar.
Right. And that maybe was this a piece I might have mentioned earlier?
No, actually.
Cool.
This composer,
Obviously something with guitar and orchestra.
guitar and strings, it says.
String orchestra.
Or string ensemble. This composer wrote a GFA set piece also for the GFA a while back, but this is not that piece.
Of course. Huh. Thinking through like all of the names again now, but yeah, and so this is obviously more like a
Quebec
it's not a concerto,
composer.
is it?
No, it's not a concerto. It's wait. Well, okay. It's a concertino. So there you go.
Right.
Because it's just for string
right.
ensemble or
I
string
know.
orchestra or whatever.
Yeah, concertino for guitar and strings, and I might go for the player because I know of the piece and I can't put the last name together in my head of the composer. So just listening to the playing again. It's is it a Canadian guitarist?
No, it's a Russian guitarist.
Okay. Russian guitarist. Artyom Dervoid?
No, not Artyom Dervoid.
Cool. It's not. Is it Ravshan Madakuyev?
No, it's a GFA winner from a while before this, like an older generation slightly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The composer is a Quebec composer.
Right.
If that helps.
Yeah. That guy's Czech. That's not. It's not a cool band. Right. Okay.
He wrote a piece for the GFA in 2010, I want to say.
Wow. I barely even knew what GFA was in 2010. So.
Okay.
Yeah. I might have to just pass on that one again too.
It's Denis Goujon.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Yeah. And
like he wrote Patrick Tierney.
The guitarist is Dmitry Ilarionov.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not used to hearing you play in this context.
I didn't know this piece existed until today because I just searched Denis Goujon's name to find pieces. I was going to find a non-guitar piece, but then I saw this thing existed and I was like, that's awesome. I need to play that on the stream. Super cool piece. All right. Last one for the day. Or no, there's two more. This is the second last one.
Do I still have a lifeline?
Yes, you can ask the audience for help if they're going to help you with this.
Okay.
Any idea?
Sounds like for a second I was about to say solo soprano saxophone, but there's something else going on in the background.
There's some electronics, so maybe another section will give you an idea.
Yeah.
Wait. Why is it silent? Okay, there's just a lot of silence in this section.
Is this Andrew Noseworthy's piece?
It is not Andrew Noseworthy, but the first name of the composer is Andrew.
Stanland.
Andrew Staniland, yes.
Yeah. Got that one.
Yeah.
And and so something like saxophone electronics. He writes so much electroacoustic music, and that's one of the he's one of the people that really get me into it too. So that's awesome. I feel nice
Yeah.
about that.
It's a piece for electronics and saxophone called. You don't know, do you?
I should know it. I know of his electronic music in a collection, and like he has another piece like with guitar and not guitar, but also like snare drum and electronics and trumpet electronics, this in electronics, that in electronics,
Cool.
and ah this title
It's on a Nexus CD of his.
something about like a lion.
The CD is called. That's not this piece, but the CD is called "Talking Down the Tiger." That's
Right, and that's one of his pieces, but
yeah. And the CD actually has Rob McDonald on it also. So
cool. Huh. Yeah, title.
The piece is called True North. Emma says
Oh,
hi,
cool,
guys.
yeah.
Hi, Emma. Nice to see you.
Hey, Emma.
Yeah.
Unlike the last time, I'm losing millions of points.
Yeah, in the guessing game. Okay, one more piece, and then we'll get back to talking about your album. Last piece here. Okay, I'll go to a later section that's more active, so you can.
That might be like my favorite one so far. That was cool.
Yeah, nice. Any idea?
Yeah. By the way, also Lifeline, but
Yeah,
so
if anyone can help Ben guess which composer this is, that would be great, because this is his last piece.
Yeah.
Halim says modern composer. Yes, a very well. Actually, this composer, I believe, is no longer living. Yes, no longer living.
Wow. In that case, my guess I had in mind is not gonna come through, but I think. I've already gotten like a million billion hints, and so that probably wouldn't be very good.
Yeah, this is a composer you already sort of tried to guess at one point.
Yeah.
Without actually guessing.
Without actually guessing. It's well, obviously like Armory Schaefer's still alive, so it's not him.
No. It's a Quebecois composer.
Vivier?
Yeah, Claude Vivier.
Nice.
Yeah, and the piece is called
and
Greeting Music.
that was and it's called what?
Greeting Music.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. We got a little tour through Canadian classical music and Canadian compositions. Do you want just one more easy one to guess, Ben?
Sure. Make me feel good.
Okay. Anyways. Okay, we're done. We're not gonna.
Okay. Gosh, is this a Jacques 2?
Jacques 2. Well, you got the Jacques 2 immediately. That's impressive. So.
Okay.
That's good. Okay, before we listen to some more music from you, do you want to tell us what's the track listing of the CD? Can you go through it, sort of laundry list here, and who the composers are?
Cool. And yeah, so the first one I like to start with Preludes is Prelude Number 2 by Dale Kavanagh, and then we go right into a piece in 5 movements called Night Spirit Suite by Andrew Stanland, who is one of the faculty of composition here at Mon Music School. And so I believe this is the premiere recording, is in like on a recording as well too. There's a couple of those in this, and so the 5 movements.
When was the Night Spirit Suite written?
2008, but I don't believe it exists on like a CD or anything until now.
Okay. Who was it written
And
for?
hmm,
Or was it just
would
written?
have been. I know he writes a lot for Rob McDonald, so
Okay.
maybe it was him again.
Okay, cool. Anyways.
And yeah, and so then we have the five movements in the titles: Sandman, Ancient Ghosts, Creaking Tree, Full Moon Lullaby, and Scary Clowns. Scary Clowns is like 50 seconds, by the way. Ouch! I just maybe caused a disruption, but
Yeah.
that was like 50 seconds, and it's super wacky and awesome. And the Sandman, obviously, like you can hear that motif, we'll say, or line from Enter Sandman, and so that one definitely
Oh,
borrows
cool.
from like other surrounding genres as well. And then we go into Shadow Prism, which you're going to be recording again on your CD, and obviously it was written for Steve Cowan in 2015, and so that was my interpretation of it. Followed by, and then we have another one of two pieces for guitar and electronics. This piece is actually for any instrument and electronics that are improvised. It's titled Violence by my friend Holly Winter, who I mentioned in the game. And so, yeah, that's a piece for free improvisation. Unlike the Shadow Prism, which is a guided improvisation, you're given pitch collections, and then this is what you do with these. But this is like I just basically sit down with the track and react. And so on this CD, that was just one take. Like I basically pressed record, and the only thing I really cut out was like my squeaky chair, and everything else was that was like my genuine performance, which was really cool as well then
So
too.
she doesn't provide any kind of directions, or are there like musical directions?
More like musical directions, and in the program note that's indicated like when there's a tonal centricity and things to listen for and like when to like I guess provide some space for the electronics to really speak. And that was more like a suggestion, because obviously I could sit there and like play like something loud and crazy for like 6 minutes, but rather it was more about uh I guess composing on the spot in a way, like just sitting down and almost having no plan in some ways. But of course, I wanted to have a plan in the recording space. But I had a general idea of the kinds of techniques I wanted to play and the things I wanted to demonstrate. And so it was very much like a reactionary and creative process, which is really interesting as well.
Cool, that's awesome. Okay, and
Yeah.
then sorry,
And
and
then
then
following that,
after Holly's
we
piece,
have
there's
the a piece that I premiered by my friend Steve Murphy here, who I've co-founded the Atlantic Guitar Society with, titled "Hypothesis of the Archons." And the CD, it's "Hypothesis of Archons," and it's in 7 movements. I'm going to try and rapid fire these: cries, unformed, voice, choir, lament, dance, and promise.
what
And
are
so 7 movements together. Sorry.
what are the archons?
It's like the title in itself is like it's sort of like a parallel universe religious theory where like the whole creative and creationist process of the world is like basically a nightmare, and everything's really like a catastrophe, and like there's a lot of like terror and hatred and violence and things. And so we kind of go through this in sort of intense process from one area to the next, where we finally get led to this last movement, which I have performed a lot as a soloist in concerts, titled "Promise," where like angels come down and like try and promise that things are going to be okay. And so we have a lot of contrasting sort of programmatic aspects throughout the suite that also really in this piece, unlike the Holly's piece or other pieces, there's it's really up to the composer to interpret, and then obviously have that sort of working relationship to then think about elements and aspects to really kind of put your own stamp on the piece and overall with the aspects of it. Like we have like movements that are really like sort of like a binary form, and as well as sort of in modal, and sometimes also with some home keys as well thrown in there too, that really demonstrate I think somehow it's very obviously like it feels like something that might have been done before on the surface, but it's like really like different sounding when it comes together, and especially as a suite that really changed my interpretation.
Cool. What does
Yeah,
hypostasis mean?
like I think maybe like it's a play on like or sort of elaboration or maybe even translation of the word hypothesis, like a or a theory perhaps.
Okay, interesting.
And then the last piece is the piece that was I commissioned at the 21st Century Guitar Conference, the second electroacoustic piece, Prime Directive for guitar and electronics.
Cool. Nice. Um, awesome. Sounds like a great program. And for people who are interested, the link to get the CD is in the description of this video. So
Yes, thank
check it
you.
out.
Hmm.
Cool. Well, great program. And you kind of had, like, I guess, a little bit of a personal relationship with each composer, right?
Yeah, some more than others. Obviously, like I talked to Steve a lot, and as well as I studied with Andrew, and and with Joe, that was an interesting process. It was kind of like a COVID process before COVID happened because he had a job up in up in like the northern tip of the province called St. Anthony. So like here's me, and then here's this town where he is in Newfoundland, which is like 12 hours in the car away. And so like with a really bad bandwidth speed, we did a lot of things over like Messenger, and so like
Nice.
a lot of like recordings and a lot of coming together and I guess creating the piece was and then like a lot of sessions like that, and then when Zoom came around and stuff like that, then it just made it even easier. But and then we finally met for the first time at the conference, and then sort of was able to tear it apart. And then the night before, then we had a little bit of workshop and change this and that, and then we premiered it. And then ever since then, it's served me well. I've performed it in some organizations such as the Sound Symposium, which is like a new music festival here, and as well as yeah, and so that I was able to put this as the title piece and the big finish on the CD as well.
Cool. Yeah, I just ask because I mean, I think, when you play new music, the best part about, well, one of the best parts about playing new music is that you have immediate access to the composers. So
Yeah.
like working with, I did, well, both the last projects I did where I was having pieces written for me was with Nathan Bredesen and then with Saki Hagens, and with both of them I had to do it on the internet. With Nathan because he lives in Ottawa and I live in the Netherlands, but with Saki because COVID happened. So,
Right.
but in both cases, I found it still extremely effective. So I was just curious how much you were able to do that with everybody on the CD. I mean, the pieces weren't all written for you, but just the fact that you could, get in touch with the composers and
Absolutely. That was
have
a
that
very formative
conversation.
process of how this actually came together too as a whole. And so some obviously maybe more than others. And like I said, like with Dale, I more or less just kind of like took it upon my own self to really come across the interpretation. And like I said, I really wanted to include a prelude on the program, and these pieces really spoke to me. And obviously when COVID happened, of course, with this sort of like it goes into the why of the project, and so I really took the opportunity to really ask myself some long-term goals. And so one of them was obviously to make a recording, and I just felt like I was in this position after coming right out of the conference and other things that I've done, where I really wanted to just put together this product that really resembles I think like a sort of like a starting point in the work that I do with living composers. And so having that relationship with them was super important.
Awesome. Cool. We're going to listen to something else that you recorded for the show, which isn't on the CD, but is also a composer who you know and someone you've worked with, which is Amy Brandon, right, from the 21st Century
Yes.
Guitar Festival. So do you want to tell us about this piece, War Games, of hers that you're going to play?
Yeah. And so War Games is movement 4 from a suite for guitar and electronics by Amy Brandon. And it's titled Scavenger. And so, yeah, so there's, I think, a total of 5 movements. And so this is the 4th one, which I performed for the conference. And yeah, I really definitely picked this one because I wanted to expand my electroacoustic repertoire. And I've thought about that because I have a couple of electroacoustic pieces, as I've said already. I have the 2 on the recording, and I've played one with Sylvie and an electric guitar and a classical guitar duo. I did the electric guitar by Clark Ross, and as well as this one, which I guess that adds a total of 4. And so I hope that in my further studies and in my professional career, I can really maybe come to the point where I mold together an electroacoustic program. And so I'm really happy to include this piece and to again include another piece that's sort of like in a neighboring province, I guess, too, and to expand on my Canadian repertoire with a piece that again like sort of has a different language and different sound that I've never really come across before.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's enjoy War Games by Amy Brandon.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Nicely done, Ben.
Thank you.
Halim says, very beautiful and hard piece. Mitchell Kotansky says, hi, Mitchell, says, cool piece. And Emma Rush says, I love this tune. So everyone's loving it.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the tune as well. It's one I see myself performing on a more regular basis and potentially even programming more movements because they'll have their own little thing to say. And I remember reading the program notes, and it's very personal connection to Amy and like some of her life experiences and whether war games are that could maybe that's something that she's familiar with or not. I need to stop hitting my microphone, but yeah. So like I think that it's definitely like a very like a personal and very unique piece in that way. And so I think that there's and the learning process as well too is pretty fun. It's obviously like it's very idiomatic given that she's a guitarist, and so I never really felt like I was like I cannot play this, and like what am I going to do? I'm stuck. But it was more or less like a it was almost therapeutic in a way, like these dissonances, but they were balanced so well with like very clear dynamic in instructions, and so like really then again like explored the more intimate side of me that I'm still trying to dig away at, and so I was really able to just like enjoy these lines and textures that like I never really have before. And I think and the electronics were really able to provide that like middle ground here for me to just sort of layer on top and then and produce these noises that I never really thought were possible, I guess.
Cool. How do you feel like this program that you did for the CD pushed you artistically, or did you find that it helped you express things you hadn't expressed before? What effect did it have on you artistically recording all this?
Yeah, that's really cool, and I think that when it comes to like artistic things that I always had to consider, improvisation was obviously an aspect, especially with Jason's piece and Holly's piece, and so I found myself obviously when I was recording it, I wanted to find a way to really demonstrate something that I really felt like was obviously something that came from me, and not necessarily like I'm gonna put on my headphones and record and play notes. Like I wanted it to be something that obviously was musically convincing, but was something that I felt like that demonstrated me and the things that I gravitate towards. And so when we have this program here, and which I've done in online concerts before as well, it was important to me to consider an order that was also very effective as well and convincing and demonstrated a lot of character. And I felt like I was really happy, especially with pieces like you go from Steve Murphy's piece to Joseph Donaghy's, which Joseph is like everything's dialed to 11 all the time, and so like it's very loud and aggressive and energetic, and I definitely have a lot of that in my playing, which we're going to hear in some other recordings today. But also, I was able to really come back, and I guess because I think throughout like some undergrad chapters, we can definitely be very like high paced and go from one thing to the next, and everything is so busy. And then I think that can affect us musically in a way that we then I guess sort of like end phrases too fast and then sort of rush through things. And so I found that in when making musical decisions, phrasing became really important to me, especially in pieces like Steve's and Staniland's, and just to really think about each note and how every single thing contributes to the picture that I'm trying to depict. And so other than that, I think that I was able to like have a learning experience, and I was thinking about like form on a different basis, and balance, of course, too. Balance being extremely important. That's a big recording word. And yeah, and other than that, I think that when listening back, I was able to really to think that like I think I'm definitely happy with the sound and then what I was able to do with each piece, because and I feel like it's something that sort of sounds like, oh, maybe that sounds like Ben, but and I think in some ways I wanted to bring out a lot of the character and the brightness, and as you can see with the artwork and other things, that I really do enjoy trying to make it as accessible and just very explicit in some ways, so that it's not necessarily like I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not, or I'm trying to sound like this person, I guess.
Yeah. What was your experience like? I know that you've recorded yourself a lot in like making videos and making little recordings here and there, but doing an album for the first time, what was your experience recording and doing the editing process and all that? Like,
in my
it
blanket
feel
fort.
different to you? Sorry?
Right. It's yeah, here in my blanket fort in my room.
Yeah, no, but I
But
mean like, but just the idea of putting a whole album together in something this big of a production, what did it feel different or not? And what was your experience like with that?
Right. And the editing process definitely affected my decisions in some ways too. And I think that obviously, with the help from Music NL and Arts NL, who I'd like to thank very much again for making this project possible, it was, I definitely think that when preparing these recordings, obviously it had to be like extremely accurate. And so that was, and so when making edits and choosing takes and stuff, it was obviously, it was important to think about, ways that obviously like like this take like take four syncs up with take two in a way that obviously has a sort of continuity. And so in the recording process it was obviously important to really stick with these musical ideas and not like do something drastically different on the next time. And so and then when it came together to the editing, it was more or less about just it was being very technical. And then going forward from there, I had my amazing friend Michelle Decor, who has done some work with the 21st Century Conference. She was responsible for the stream, by the way. And so and also she was very capable in making these recordings sound like something I'm very proud of, as if I was almost in like a church in Toronto working with Drew Henderson. Like I was very very impressed with the work that she did to really make this sound very professional from something that was obviously a limitation of being at home. And so that was definitely a consideration as well. And so I think that going forward, I'm very happy to like tell everybody that yes, this was done in my home, and like it was done on this Rode NC1A. And so I think that that definitely challenges a lot of the obvious like the norms, I guess, of recording an album. And so I think that I guess going forward and into my future recordings, I've definitely learned a lot of things as well.
Cool. Yeah, it's a great learning experience. I mean, I'm sure that you'll go into your next release with more clarity about what decisions to make, and you'll have some experience of what worked and what didn't, and all that kind of stuff. So that's great.
Great.
Nice. Are you happy with the order you chose for the album? Was the order of the pieces something you agonized over, or was it pretty easy to pick?
A little bit of both. Obviously, a prelude is a prelude, so we're going to start with that. But
Well,
versus
on
the
my
fact that they
upcoming
weren't
CD, I'm going to put Prelude second, so you know.
okay, that's definitely a norm too. Like sometimes, so it just doesn't really belong. Like there's some preludes that are really like different than I guess in texture that we really want to sort of depict in like a different order and like it's sort of artistically. And one of the things I kind of enjoyed was the fact that you'd go from one piece which was so dreamy and intimate to the next which was like all of this like loudness, and then the next again quiet, and then loud and quiet and loud. And so I think
Okay, so you tried to like
an
make
order
it
that
sort of flow that way.
yeah, and an order that really demonstrates character. And so like and then thinking about like what piece is going to be in the middle to sort of really represent like this and then do that, like
Hmm.
rather than it just being like this line, I wanted to create something that has a little bit of musical continuity into.
Yeah. So okay, I'm just looking at the track listing one more time to check it out here.
Also, the lengths of the tracks are generally short for a classical CD. Like, it's not like I
Yeah.
recorded like a Ponce Sonata, like 22 minutes. Like, there's a track on there that's 50 seconds. Like I said, the longest thing is probably Shadow Prism, which is 6.5 minutes. And in the classical world, that's rather short. And so
Well,
I
even
was
for
also
uh,
happy with the fact that there's a lot of short tracks, considering, and not to be like a super like outer world, but like look at how we consume media, man. Like our Instagram videos, 60 seconds, TikToks are short, and
mhm.
so to find like repertoire that was short was also, I guess, in a more marketable sense than to not that that was the priority, but it just happened to be that in the end that was more like an afterthought.
Yeah, I was gonna say even Shadow Prism being the longest track, 6.5 minutes. I mean, I don't remember exactly how long Steve's version is, but the piece can be anywhere from 5 to 25, approximately, according to the score, because it's improvised to some extent. But I think my version's like 8 or 9 minutes long, so you
Yeah.
even played that shorter than some of us do. So it's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
I think it's nice to have a CD that shows sort of quick changes from one thing to the next. Um, Cool. Yeah. And the title track, Prime Directive. Why did you put the title track at the end? Was that intentional, or did it just make the best closer in terms of like
It's
mood?
the best closer because the end is chaotic. Like
Okay, nice.
it's
Okay.
like the whole notion of it being like Star Trek, and like you do not like interfere with the life of other species and things. And so we're going through this extraterrestrial madness. And so this end where I put on the capo on the fourth fret and everything's kind of like G sharpish, and then I'm absolutely blasting off with these rasgueros, and it's really like influenced by like metal, and it's basically a shred. And so
Yeah.
like I wanted to end on a very high note, and I think that was a really exciting thing to program on there and put it right at the end too.
Cool. Nice. Um, Yeah, go out with a bang. That's great. I mean, although again, with the you mentioned that the way that we consume media now, it's also a little problematic in the sense that albums people don't really consume albums the way they used to. They don't listen to them the way they used to with streaming and everything. So in
Mhm.
some ways, I feel like this decision of how to like structure the album matters a lot less now than it used to, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
We feel like less restricted in that way, like we can make our own choices.
yeah, but also just that we know that it's not like everybody who listens to it is going to be putting it in a CD player and listening through from track 1 to track 10.
Right.
Um, Iona Gansreber. Hi, Iona. It's nice to see Iona here. She says, was it hard to make your own edit plan? I find it's a little like a surgeon operating on himself. Yeah, did you do the edits yourself? Or did Michelle do them?
Yeah, like the edits and edits and splicing. Yeah, that was part of me, and as well as Michelle gave me some advice on that. Like she was more or less just sort of like, by the way, you missed out on like this crossfade here and things like that. But yeah, like I think there was some pieces that were a lot easier than others, and
Mm-hmm.
with violence, obviously that was one take. I just sort of did it, but like I definitely like the idea of really trying to be very consistent and it definitely helps the fact that not every piece is insanely difficult. Like it was not like I was recording like six chacones or something like that, where it was like you can edit all day and then you can still find things to look at. But like I think it was definitely important to me in the recording process. Also, given the fact that I was sort of independent in that I was in my basement and I had like this whole week. Like I gave like 5 mornings to myself to do this, and then that was the process of recording it. And so then think I had to consider that, and then the ultimate result that I could produce, and then find a way to edit so that I knew going into it like what take was going to be good for this section of the piece. Like maybe like for example, one of Steve Murphy's movements, which has like an ABCD. I was like, okay, well, A was best in this take. Well, then I'll use C from that, and then can use that B, and then that D, and things like that. And so I really wanted to find the way to like make it a little bit more broad, rather than like maybe like a measure or something,
Mm-hmm.
rather than yeah.
Yeah, now, I mean, I editing and recording myself as I've improved with technology and with the software and everything. I find it actually a huge relief. Ioana says I find it's like a surge, like little like a surgeon operating on himself. I feel less anxiety because I don't have to worry about artistic decisions being made by somebody else editing. There are people who I trust. Like I had my first CD I had recorded by Ralph Meyer in UFC at UFC, and he was amazing. He's a guitarist too, and Drew. When I recorded with Drew, like I trust that guy. So much, but being able to do it myself is super nice. Like I've sound treated my office so that I can re-record if I need to certain sections or anything, and being able to
Mm-hmm.
go back and be like, oh, I'm just going to redo this section because I feel like this could come out this way this time. And I don't know. I find it's so nice personally being in the driver's seat artistically because I really feel like editing is an artistic step. We don't really like to talk about it. It's kind of the dirty little secret of recordings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's just another part of the artistic process because you're basically refining the final version to be exactly what you wanted as a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And being the producer yourself, I feel like you get that freedom. Maybe you had that experience, maybe not, but I find it relieving in a way.
Yeah, and I think that also enables definitely a weight off the shoulders. And so rather than a surgeon in an operating room, I feel more like I'm making like a Lego fort or something,
Yeah, yeah. I
like
feel like
a
an
Lego.
architect or something. Like I've drawn
Yeah.
the plan. I actually get to build the thing, and I get to like go back and be like, this like wall didn't turn out how I wanted. I'm gonna do it this way instead. And I don't know. It's just very nice for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah. I mean, it's the rise of the self-made entrepreneur, right? It's like we in today's day and age as a freelance artist, you do everything yourself. You record yourself. You edit yourself. You publicize yourself.
Right.
I mean, of course, it helps to have the help of others for certain things,
Mhm.
but yeah. And the art you had done by a friend, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about the art?
Yeah, sure. So the cover was done by my friend Katie Hardy, who's was also my very good friend, but I'm definitely closer with her brother, who's I think going into his second year in September and double bass at McGill in the Masters. And so we did like a across the island road show back in 2019 in a 10-piece chamber ensemble called the Mud Music 10, and then we've also had the opportunity to perform together on a regular basis. And so I'm very happy to include some friends in this product as well, and to support lots of local and the sound engineers engineers, artists, and so like I really like the style of art that she gravitates towards, like this like the doodle sort of sense, and I think that it's sort of like stand-up because obviously like I could sit there and make this like beautiful headshot, but we have lots of that already in my opinion, and so I think
Mhm.
that I really like the tone that it produces. It's really accessible rather than it being like oh you should you don't know about this is classical guitar, like if you're not a classical guitarist you don't know about this sort of thing, and then they also like the back and the sides and making that template possible. That was done by my friend Isabel McKenna, who is also in town here. I think it was a friend of mine who I went to high school with as well too. So like that's just such a Newfoundland thing, by the way. Like everybody knows everybody, even
Yeah.
though there's like almost 200,000 people here in St. John's. Like I'm sure Steve feels the same way, and Adam Batstone. We're like, oh, I know his father, and like things like that. Like,
Yeah.
and so like we have connections just based on that. And so I think that was also I think a very uplifting feature of the recording process is the fact that like these composers live in St. John's, and Michelle lives in St. John's, and so like that definitely facilitated the recording process was to have a close knit community.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, it's nice to work with people know and trust and you have a relationship with already. I'm with you on the artwork thing. I'm trying for my new album. I'm not going to make any announcements here, but I'm hoping to work with an artist who does like illustration and stuff. Just because I'm like I don't want it to be like another classical guitar CD where I just have like my headshot and I don't know. I did that on my last one partly because I didn't really want to spend the money on you know hiring an artist who needs to be paid well, obviously. But this time, like, I would rather just pay for some really cool illustrated art and have something that's sort of out of the norm of classical guitar releases, on visually.
Right.
So I think that's great. I think
Yeah, like an abstract too in a way. Obviously, like the score, and so there's a lot of inspiration from the Shadow Prism, given that like we're going through like this stuff here, and so like collectively it came together. And oh, I love the shoulder here. That looks just like me. But
yeah,
so
I
things
was commenting to you. I love how the like playing posture of the player on the cover is like terrible. Yeah.
right, and
Like,
so things that are like kind of abstract, but like symbolic and very meaningful. That's definitely something that we can explore. It's an early and I guess sort of premature example of collaborating with other artists, which is another thing that I think we have room for in the guitar world as well.
for sure. Ioana says, follow up on the recording thing. It's nice to have deciding power. It's just that I find you can get nitpicky in details that when you get a distance you would never have bothered with. That's true. So she's saying like, there's stuff that when you aren't recording you wouldn't bother with, and then when you do record you would bother with. Yeah, for sure. I guess like when I'm editing I try to remember that like all those little things I'm like agonizing over going in to do spectral repair on, removing little creaks and cracks and stuff. You got to remember that like even if there's like 10% of those things that remain that you're not super happy with, the nitpicky details, when you step back from it and release it, those like tiny little things are things that nobody else is going to notice, right? So
Absolutely, yeah. Like at the end of the day, it's never 100%.
yeah, but when you get it to like 80% of what you wanted, then like okay, by this point it's like more than 100% good for everybody else. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and they haven't been sitting there listening to the album like over and over again, obsessively trying to pick out the details. Actually, I don't know if you know the band Periphery, but their guitarist Misha Mansour calls this demoitis, what they call it, because they record all their own albums, and he's saying like when they finish the final draft of the master and send it off to be mastered, they're like, step away, don't listen to it for another month, and then you come back and listen to it in a month, and you're like, oh, it's actually great. But like when you're in that zone of like having like gone over it like 24 times in a day to try to fix problems, it's hard to see it objectively at that point.
Hmm.
I don't know if you had that experience too, but like sometimes when I
Yeah.
finish a recording I'm like, I can't tell anymore if this sucks or not, and then it's actually great once it's out.
Right, like going forward, like if I listen to this in like 10, 20 years, if like maybe I'll have a totally different take on like Shadow Prism, or maybe like, oh yeah, I played that Dale piece. I like that. I'm gonna pick it up again, and maybe not notice or even have the same mindset at all going into that recording as I do now.
Yeah, actually I listened back for the first time since I released it, I think, to my Chacon video that I did last year after I finished my recital where I played the Chacon, and I was like, there was a lot of things about that video that bothered me, about like little problems in my slurs or like little like buzz notes kind of thing. And then I went back and listened to it today while I was doing something else, just like in the background. And I was like, actually, this is great. You know, I was like, there's so many things
Yeah.
that I did so well that like I took for granted at that time because I was like so hyper
Right. Well,
focused.
let's be proud of the art that we make sometimes.
Yeah. Joseph Aaron Priest says, "Yay, go Ben! Ben is looking like a Chad." It's true.
I can't even look more like a Chad and take this off because I just have this
Oh, no,
like
Ben.
Fast and
That's not
Furious
this.
shirt.
That's not this sort of live stream, Ben.
Right. Different live stream. Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
Joe, how are you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, Joe. Actually, just sort of off topic, but everyone should go check out Joseph Aaron Priest's YouTube channel, EHRENPREIS, because his name is impossible to spell if you just hear it. Because he released an awesome new Bach video on his Brahms guitar, and he has like these awesome new mics and stuff. So,
Yeah, and he has also a new recording that you guys were talking about on the Messy Desk as well, with new music for H-string guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually very relevant. It is totally on topic. Joe's CD is completely on topic with yours.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Anyways, Joe's great. Okay, cool. So I want to listen to one more piece of yours before we talk a bit more and wrap up. So we're going to listen to, well, not a piece of yours, but a piece you played in. And this is with your former teacher, Sylvie, right?
She's still my teacher until the 23rd. That's
Oh,
when I
okay.
do my grad recital. And
Right.
so
Sorry.
we'll have a session and then, right. She's still my teacher.
I thought you graduated for some reason. It's my bad.
Yeah, that's still, I'm still that young. I
Right.
still have a couple.
You're still an undergrad, Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get off my lawn.
Noise complaint.
Yeah. Okay. So you're playing with your teacher Sylvie, and this is a piece by Andrew Noseworthy, right?
Yeah, I'll talk about it a bit too. And
Yeah.
dissension is defined by like the act of just like a really strong disagreement. Even though that's not how I would describe myself and Sylvie, because like we work really well together in the last little bit with lessons, and so like the Chacon learning process. Again, we have that piece in common. We have almost the same program, but whether it's that or anything else, I mean, like I totally agree with a lot of her technical and artistic things that we've worked on together. And so when it came to making this virtual product, she's based in Nova Scotia right now, and I'm here in St. John's, and so obviously like I recorded first and then she recorded. Obviously there was a lot of agreement, but you hear in the music there's like a lot of sort of conflict rhythmically. Like there's not a lot of unison except for obviously like the very beginning, but then we sort of drift away, and it's very independent in that process, which is a lot of guitar duos. You see a lot of working togetherness, like like Adam and Steve with Impressions Intime is a very much dialogue and a very communicative process. But this was like we could basically play it so that I'm facing here and Sylvie's facing there, and then we're still performing the piece effectively.
Yeah. So the feature of the piece is that the two parts don't always agree. They're dissenting from each other.
Yeah. And
Hence
it's in
dissension.
three movements, and
Okay.
we're going to hear the first, I think.
Yeah, I cut it up. Yeah, the first one.
Perfect.
Just so we don't keep all of you for too long. But the full thing can be heard on the 21st Century YouTube stream, right?
Yeah, that would be from day one.
Okay, day one of the 21st Century Guitar Conference. It's in there somewhere. And Andrew Noseworthy is a Canadian composer. He's based in Toronto?
I think he's finishing up his doctoral studies in London, but I did recall
okay.
him hearing that he's going to move to Toronto, and he's an alumni of Memorial University. He did guitar as his major, and then did the composition major, and then went to New York University in Western, and yeah, still hanging out in Canada, doing awesome stuff.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, Andrew's great. Great guy, great composer. Dissension. Oh, I was going to say also, you mentioned Stephen Adams' CD. It is a kind of an interesting comparison, because in that situation they're playing a lot of like piano music, right, and music for other instruments, and so it is a totally different thing, right? When you're playing something where the two parts are supposed to make a whole, it must be so interesting interpreting a piece where your two parts are supposed to conflict, like.
Yeah. And so we have like especially given that a lot of it's not just piano music that they're playing, but like for solo piano and solo harp and things like that.
Exactly.
And so,
yeah. So
yeah, and so it's one human being, and so they have to be like even more in sync. Like they have to read each other's minds and like be like that almost the same connection that like solo duo has, like where they can read each other's minds.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting to think and go the other way and to create something that's still very effective in that way.
Yeah, I've actually had a lot of conversations with other guitar duos about this. Like, do people see guitar duo as something where the two guitars should sound like one guitar, or do they see it as something where you should have like contrast with each other, or is it a mix of both? Like I think with my duo with Nathan, we had more contrast, also because we don't live in the same place, so we don't rehearse together all the time. But when we played together, we didn't even try necessarily to sound the same. We tried to like do what each of us does well, and then make it fit together somehow. It's a little bit like well, I don't want to compare us to this, but you hear this when you hear like John Williams and Julian Bream play together. They're like two totally different players, and
Yeah.
so the
One with good
resulting
tone.
yeah, and then solo duo is a good example, or duo melisse. Duo melisse or solo duo are examples of duos where they really blend to the point where it's like. So I don't know if one is better than the other. It's just two different approaches to the same thing,
Exactly. It's subjective.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's listen to Dissension by Andrew Noseworthy, played by you and Sylvie Preux, right? Is her last name?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Cool. Okay, very nice. Good job, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, I was super proud of that whole performance for the virtual conference, and there weren't a lot of dual pieces for the conference for obvious reasons. Like everybody was in like some people were in lockdown situations,
Yeah.
but I was really happy with the whole diligence of that process of working with Sylvie in the duo setting in two different provinces was definitely a first time for definitely a lot of us. But I think it came together into this piece that I'm really proud of, and big congratulations to Andrew as well. That was it was great to work with him on that and address a couple of questions on like WebEx, the calling software that we use at MUN, and Michelle also did the splicing and editing for that as well. And so yeah, and so I think going forward, hopefully I can perform that in person someday, because that's it definitely has an impact on me as well.
Cool. Yeah, me and Nathan were supposed to do some duo things for the conference, but then it just didn't really make sense to
Right.
premiere stuff like that as a duo over distance. On the subject of duo, Adam says sometimes blend is required, other times biting contrasts. In the Jolivet, for example, there's a lot of blending and then stark contrast. Like solo duo, we rearranged a lot of what Jolivet wanted for the purpose of consistency in the lines. and the analysis needs to be made before putting the piece under the fingers. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like, yeah, Nathan and I did that too, actually, because we played this piece by Daniel Metisade, and there was definitely some places where we knew that we needed to sound similar, like we needed to blend in the way that we did the attack and the articulation. And so before we even met, because we were living in different places, we were sending recordings and being like, hearing how the other person articulates it to make sure that we, made sense together.
Right. Because that's an interesting thing that I've come across before. Like, we've talked about Shadow Prism a lot, but other pieces where like you don't want to get too diluted in one recording or somebody's recording of a piece, because then that can influence way too heavily how you interpret.
Yeah.
Obviously, that it is important to listen to a piece, so that way, like if you're ever stuck on like a passage, like okay, what is this rhythm? I don't know how to play this, but then you get into your ears on like a more broad sense. But finding a way for you to also not get too stuck on something, so that it's you have an idea, okay, I'd like to make it sound like this, as you practice and repeat it and then get familiar with it, and not necessarily too much on just the listening by ear, because that's what we do a lot with like rock and stuff. There's like we want to play like a Van Halen thing, and then we have like obviously his recording, and so then okay, that's the one that we're going to do, so we want to sound like that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think that we should avoid copying what people do from hearing it. In the case of the Daniel Metzade piece, like, it had been recorded by Steve and Francois Bergeron. And me and Nathan purposely tried not to listen to that recording too, so that we would come up with our own ideas about it based on the score, and based on talking to Daniel. So I think that's really important to do. Halim is saying, I need to hear it many times to understand it, the piece. He said, is there any signs in the score when stretching the string?
Yeah, so things like bending and stuff, that was indicated, and as well as some scratching of the strings were indicated.
Cool.
There's a good balance of extended techniques in that if you just do everything, then it's cheesy. So like he
Yeah.
stuck to like three or four things, and like and they really kind of defined the piece in that again like really contributed to the soundscape rather than it just being extended technique because look at me, I'm a composer and I can do this. It was something about like that really contributed to like the development and growth of these ideas. And so we have like bending and glissandos that are really pronounced, and as well as the string scratching that really I think emphasize like a sort of harshness, as if it were like it makes it sort of more bright. And so and by that I think that definitely obviously adds a lot to the overall texture and the soundscape that it creates. But yeah, and so like obviously the notation of these things is a whole other ball game, because I think guitarists and guitar composers are often a little bit lost still on notation, especially when it comes to things like harmonics and percussion and whatever else. But yeah, and so
Yeah.
something that really indicated and contributed rhythmically and potentially even harmonically to the overall picture.
Yeah, we don't have like always the best standardized way to write things, and so it gets a bit confusing sometimes. Um, Ioana says, "I find if you decide to listen to someone else playing a piece, you're learning. Then listen to more than one person if possible to make it all more relative." Yes, so she's saying that you should listen to multiple people play a piece so that you make it all more relative. I think that's better to get a survey idea of different ways to approach the piece. I still feel like as long as you can listen to other people, but I still think you should approach first the score and your own ideas of what the score is. It's just so easy to copy things that people have done that could be even technically like not quite achieving something that's written in the score. So
Yeah, and I think that also sometimes you find a piece by hearing it the first time, not necessarily by coming across the score. Of course, actually, no, I think that's most of the time. But so like if you come across it in a concert, like wow, I like that, maybe I'll keep that in like a notes or something like that. And then the process can then really rely on like then like okay, maybe I'll find the score, and if you're picking out repertoire for like an academic year or an audition or something like that, it doesn't even have to be that, just personal enjoyment. And then it can come down to like different recordings and stuff that really then you can pick and choose.
Yeah, I just don't really trust, honestly, most guitarists to like get all the musical details correct. So if I'm listening, especially if I'm listening specifically to one or two recordings, even players I highly respect and I really enjoy, they're probably getting one or two things wrong, just like I do when I play a piece. So I wouldn't want someone else to copy my musical ideas.
Oh my gosh, all the time. And
Yeah,
like
and
and obviously like I'm so sensitive to that because like la 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 very good, but like I'm learning Sonata Classica by
Ponce,
Manuel
yeah.
Ponce, the movements 1, 2, and 4 for my grad recital. And so you have these recordings by Jason Vio, Segovia, Iliana Matos, and I think Anna Vidovic, and they're doing all different things. And there's so many misconceptions and discrepancies with people like leaving out a harmonic or playing a chord in an entirely different voicing, and like
Yeah.
it's drastic changes that are just not on the score. And so I think ultimately when it comes down to that, it's just like, well, what do I think like makes sense musically here? And so then we do definitely rely on having these multiple sources, and of course, and I think me and Sylvia had to actually debate a lot of those sections because it just really depends on like what actually works in the, and it makes it sort of like in the continuity, I guess. But that, and even that has its own perspective because Jason Vio would disagree with Segovia, would disagree with Iliana Matos, would
Yeah,
disagree
so
with
and
Ana Vidovic.
another layer in the sense, especially with Ponce, where it's like the manuscript, right? The manuscripts are not always clear, and they can have mistakes in them too. Ponce was not perfect either, so I don't
Yeah,
want.
even like Villalobos or Tedesco.
Yeah, I don't want to make the argument that like you have to start with the score because the score is always correct, and like if you interpret the score the correct way and have the correct interpretation of it, it almost starts to sound like a religion. Then you'll like play it perfectly. That's not my point at all. The point is that like the beauty of interpreting the score is that you come up with ideas based on what you saw the composer write and what they're trying to communicate musically, right? And I think that it's great that everybody comes up with different ideas based on that, but I feel like the best place to start is with the composer's ideas and then be like, what are they trying to say, and do I want to express it that way or do I interpret it this way? It's just, yeah, it's too easy to just copy mistakes, basically. A little anecdote on that. I believe it was, there's a version of one of Albanus's, a transcription of one of Albanus's pieces. I can't remember if it was Catalunya. I think it was Catalunya, that Carlo Marchione, my former teacher, made a transcription from the piano version, and he had a colleague or friend record it for a CD for like a label or something, or for a video for a bigger channel of some kind. Can't remember what channel it was, and they were like, oh, we can't publish this, there's a wrong note. And it turned out that it was a right note that most guitarists play like a wrong note from a Segovia transcription. And Carlo had to point out, like, no, in the piano version, this is the correct note. It's just everybody has heard the wrong note so many times that,
That's crazy.
But that's the level we're at sometimes, right? Like, where like people are like, oh, this person played a wrong note here. It's like, no. They're the only one who knows what the correct note is from the piano score, So it might not have been
another reason to bash Segovia.
Well, but he was a human being, right?
That's
like
crazy.
He's a human being, right? So like he probably, everybody who transcribes that much freaking music gets a wrong note at least once, or changes a note for some reason, or maybe he read a version of the score that was copied from somebody and had that wrong. I don't know, like who knows? But
yeah, and if you're busy like Segovia, you're going around doing so much, and then it's like, okay, you have to transcribe this in like 2 hours, and so obviously you're going to miss an accidental, and so like, but I think at the end of the day, it's obviously important to have to holding accountable for these things, so that way we're again doing what's actually on the score versus what's not. Because if we weren't doing what's on the score, then we could just sit there and like play campfire chords all day and pretend like, okay, I'm gonna play that was the part by Cost.
I mean, I personally feel like if someone, like, let's say someone, like you said, changing a voicing in a Ponce part, maybe some guitarist says, okay, but I'm going to change the voicing of this chord because it works better for me technically, and I think musically it's more effective anyways. I actually have nothing against that, but what people shouldn't be doing is then listening to that recording and making that same choice because they think that's what the score says, because they're just listening to this person play, and they're copying their ideas rather than... Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I'm actually not against, like, changing stuff. If it makes... Yeah, and... we're all musicians, we're all creative, we're all interpreting this stuff, so we have to make choices that make sense for us. But it's a little disheartening to see when people just like sort of just adopt whatever they hear from their favorite player, and at the same time though, I mean, I
dismiss everything else.
Yeah, I also, like to adopt things from people when I think it worked well, so sometimes it's worth doing, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, we got off on a little tangent there. Adam says also Ponce's scores are littered with Segovia isms, so you need to question everything. Exactly, question everything, Ben.
Yeah, and like I think that before I even really started playing repeating passages, it was like writing all the fingerings out because there's just not a lot of legato permitted, and when you take the opportunity to really question these left-hand decisions and like throw in a little bit more independence, which is something I'm really starting to admire in players like Adam and Javier Jara and Pavel Steidl, who are really breaking the norm of moving in shapes, because that's what I did a lot, especially in my development as like a
Mm-hmm.
jazz player and things like that. We're going like this one to that, to that, to that. But like rather, it should be more fluid so that we get a lot more voice interplay and legato. And so when you have a Segovia-ism that is like, okay, we need to have the theme on the second string all the time. It's cutting off the entire chord when there's a half note written here. So like, why can't we just find a way around that so that we can still get that sort of effect? Because at the end of the day, a piece like that, or I think about that as really like a depiction of like a Haydn piano sonata or anything. Tedesco Caprichos de Goya, something that overall it brings out the musical intent, but in a way that really does what the guitar does best. And I think that by really challenging, I think the technical sort of I think traditions. I think that we're sort of going through this little guitar revolution in that we're really saying like, okay, actually, well, we're going to try this sort of right hand pattern. And there's some guitarists who like would love to use their pinky more often, and also like we're starting to see a lot more things like leaning towards guitar supports and the way that we approach things like slurs and it overall just creates and even propels these interpretations so that we still go to pieces that we are even played a lot but find just something different to say just based on that alone.
Yeah. Uh, Joe Joseph Aaronpree says best to communicate what you feel is most convincing. Also depends how much you respect the composer. um, yeah, I mean, I don't feel, I don't feel like, interpreting what a composer says and coming up with maybe a contrary idea to what they said on a musical issue, like a dynamic or something. I don't feel like that's disrespecting them, as long as I'm aware of what they were trying to communicate and I still convey the general message. I don't know. It's just hard to know because my issue is that like there are composers, and I've known composers who have been very open to differing interpretations. I mean, even Jason, for example, I remember asking Steve at the beginning of Shadow Prism, it says rapidly, lightly, evenly. And I remember asking Steve, like, do you know if Jason really wants this, like, totally even, like, and, like, no variation in tempo? And he said, oh, I actually talked to Jason about that, and, it turned out that he thought it'd be nice, actually, if it could be a little more flexible maybe sometimes. So then I allowed my interpretation to become more flexible, but it wasn't just because Jason said it in a way. It was also, like, I want it to be free. But I guess my point is that like it's hard to know just from the markings on the page if that's really if the composer is really rigid in their ideas anyways, because Jason was kind of like, oh, well, this could be flexible in this way, and I know other stories of composers like that. So it's just it's hard for me to like really believe the idea that like you have to do exactly what you think is literally said on the score to respect the composer, if that makes sense, because we don't, many cases we don't
Right,
know
exactly.
what the composer would have actually been okay with or not okay with in terms of adjustments artistically. I don't
And
know.
especially with like composers who are guitarists, they might actually even indicate the fingering not just because of a technical advantage, but because they like the sound of maybe like like an MA scale. And so then
Yeah.
there might even be a composer guitarist conflict in that you say like, actually no, I think PI is going to work better for me here. And then they're like, well, I want this, and so please do that because that's how I like the sound. But and then it's like impossible. It's like 30-second notes, and it's just like, well, like please. But then it's and I think that that's obviously when like the relationship can then change, and then the overall product can then change too. Is like and it depends, I think, on the I guess the awareness and how specific they are in certain places, because sometimes they're just not. Like sometimes you can change something like on a very large scale, but if it's something very specific like that, then that's when it definitely becomes like that's when the challenges and I guess the limitations really arise again.
I guess my issue is like understanding what the intent is. Like, I just know from trying to interpret anything written, whether it's like a text of like philosophy or morality or whatever, intent is very difficult to like understand sometimes, or to be sure of, especially with someone who's no longer alive, right? It's not like you can go ask them. And I know, this is a tricky issue, but like when you're reading a score from a composer like that, it's hard to know why they put something. Like, for example, with fingerings, like you're talking about, I'm helping Nathan edit the sonata now for publication, his sonata that he wrote for me. And we're actually going to do a live stream next week to do the first movement on live stream, so we can, you know, show people the music, and he can also edit it live, and we can get, you know, maybe some feedback. But like a lot of the fingerings we're putting into that
Nice.
are not because I think people have to play it that way. I'm giving a lot of fingerings to Nathan because I think they might be helpful technically, but other people might look at that and be like, oh, Michael and Nathan here are saying that you have to do this fingering for this musical reason. It's like, actually, maybe my intent was just to be helpful in terms of playing, but maybe that fingering doesn't work well for you or for someone else, you know? So
Yeah, that's such a big thing too. Like some people are not so comfortable with, like, you know, big stretches in the left hand or even in the right hand then
yeah,
too. And so it's I think that it's definitely a token to the composer to then have like that sort of room, I think, to adapt, and then have something that's definitely not just written for like one person and their strengths. So that it just makes then, because then I think in the end result is where we have a different, like different performances, different sounds, and so something that's
yeah.
and I think that's kind of admirable in my perspective, to see a piece really grow with and to really reflect a different person in that way.
Yeah, I'm just feeling like it's a hard problem to solve because I'm sort of struggling, like how many fingerings to suggest to Nathan and how many should he put in there. We're erring on the side of putting more because it's a very difficult piece, but like I just don't want people to feel like the fingerings are like restrictive for a musical reason or a technical reason. Sometimes they're musical suggestions because I think they work better musically. Sometimes there's technical suggestions, but I can't write in the score like every time like this is because, you know, for this reason, and I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's I
Yeah,
hope.
and your score is just an essay, not music.
Exactly. And so I just hope that people look at it and take it with a bit of a grain of salt, you know, and so, you know, I guess I'm undermining my own argument for like, you know, advocating for people to start with the score and not other people's recordings, but yeah, it's, I guess there's not really an easy answer here.
Mhm.
With the CD, just to wrap up on this note, with the CD, did you feel any anxiety about putting down a definitive, your own definitive version of each of these pieces, or did you see it kind of like, oh, it's fine, I'll probably think differently about these pieces in a year and that kind of thing?
In some cases, there was probably a bit of both, and so obviously, with the piece like Kavanagh's and Steve's, and as well as Stanley's that are a little bit more traditional notation, it was a matter of really making sure I obviously had the right voicings and the right chords, so that way I can depict obviously what's on the page in that regard, and so it's something that sounds like that piece. And but then and when we get into things like improvisation and pieces that are really open to interpretation, it was still, I guess, a bit of a challenge to really find the right character, but also in a way that really resembles what I want to depict from the piece. And so I think going forward with a piece like, for example, Steve Murphy's, there were some situations where like I would decide fingerings that just gave a phrase an entirely different sound than what was originally indicated, and so that was part of the process then too. Like obviously, like, he was very cool with like okay, I agree with that, like if that's what works for you, then that's totally what you should do. But like there might have been some situations where it was just like, oh gosh, like this is like an entirely different thing, that mechanism, or just that something I really don't want to do here. And so that was definitely something to worry about in all of the pieces, I think, was to make sure that just the overall, like every single moment that I can make was a reflection of not just my playing, but the music that was written as well.
Right. But I mean, like, did you feel any anxiety, or not anxiety, maybe that's not a good way to put it, but did you feel like any expectation about getting your perfect version for yourself? Or were you kind of okay with the fact that this is just a snapshot of Ben now and that's how it's going to be?
That probably yeah, that the second part, because just given that when there's future recordings to come, I mean, I'm still developing in my technique and in
Mm-hmm.
musicality, and like, I'm still a student, and I'm gonna sound completely different like 2 years from now, like after like I have a lot of my masters done into, and then going forward, like when I'm like I'm an older adult, and I think I'm gonna have a lot of different perspective on some things.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're lifelong students as musicians, man. So after you,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
after you graduate, you'll still change every. I feel like even since I graduated a year ago from the masters, I've already changed a lot. And if I recorded some of those pieces now, they'd sound different, right? So, um, but
Yeah,
it's great that
that's
you
such a beautiful
recognize
thing
that.
too. Like we're never done learning.
Sorry.
Yeah, because like it can be especially mind consuming when you're at a young age and you're just like, okay, I know everything now, and like and that can definitely be reflected in some people's musical personalities then too. But like it's so important to recognize that like here's what we know, and then here's what you don't know, but then like here's what you don't know that you don't know, I guess.
Yeah,
So like there's so much
exactly.
to learn, and we're never going to be
Yeah.
done learning ever.
Yeah, it's I mean it's the classic paradox of like human existence, right? The more we know, the more we don't know. I mean that's it was I think it's the Socratic definition of wisdom is knowing how much you don't know. Um, Anyhow,
Mhm.
I think it's great that you recognize that, and I think that's the beauty of recording. Actually, people feel that anxiety about recording of, oh my gosh, I have to get like the perfect version of this piece down. But actually, the beauty of it is that it serves as a record, a touchstone of who you are, and you go back and you listen to
Yeah.
it, and you're like, that's where I was then. And like I think I don't know, in my experience, I've only really appreciated how my recordings have aged. Even if some of them I'm like, oh, I could do this better now, this thing better or that thing better. But I don't ever feel like listening back like I regret doing that and putting that down and putting that out there, because now it's just a way for me to look back and
Right.
for others to look back at my development. I don't know. So
Looking back, like Prime is first. Prime is the beginning, and in some ways,
yeah,
it really is the beginning a lot. And so, like, we're always starting something new and learning something new. And so, and I think that could definitely. And when we think about that going forward with a piece that even we might have been playing for like 10 years, there's still areas that we can work on and still things that we can discover within these pieces because it is a lifetime journey after all.
yeah, and you can always re-record stuff. I mean, there are many artists who've done that, right? So there's nothing
Yeah, like
stopping you
Sharon has
from
been with El de Camera Negro.
yeah, there's nothing stopping you from taking one of these pieces on a subsequent release down the road and redoing it, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and not even to fix stuff, but just to see where it's at that point and who you are and how you bring it
Mhm.
across. So
Absolutely.
cool, awesome. Well, the CD is Prime. You can get it at the link in the description, right?
Yeah, and other than that, I also have the order form on my website. Well, that's the link, but
That's the link. Yeah.
so check out my Facebook and Instagram pages at Ben Diamond Guitarist, and as well as www.bendiamond/classical guitarist, where you can find the info to order the form. If you're in St. John's, by the way, it's also very easy for you to purchase that at Fred's Records. I decided to pick that as the store to distribute the CDs as well because I like to support local, and they've been around for a long time, and so to stimulate the local economy and to buy also my CD in the store as well too. And of course, given that it's also available on Apple Music and Spotify, that can be convenient, especially if you're going to be away from your CD player. But I would absolutely love to send you a copy of my CD, and looking forward to in the future seeing where the CD takes me as well. And yeah, so find the order form, like basically like name and address, all that stuff. And other than that, I'll have the probably the time on Monday to ship out all the copies because like post office is being closed on the weekend. And yeah, so thank you everybody also for coming in, and everybody that's listened so far. It came out digitally first, which is interesting. But and so going forward, I think that it's going to be nice to have people like like put this in the hands. It's a lot different when you hold bits of music like, and it's something that's actually a product rather than like, oh, just another couple of finger clicks away. And that's at least how I feel about it too. And yeah, and so other than that, I'm just looking forward to hopefully getting lots of nice comments, and I'd love to talk about these pieces. And if anything inspires you on the record, and you can always reach out and ask me questions, and I'd love to help facilitate and get lots of people playing these pieces because they're awesome pieces.
Cool. Yes, I'm looking forward to getting my physical copy in the mail, so it'll be cool.
Yeah, it'll
Um,
probably take 10 years to get there because Newfoundland and stuff like that.
right, yeah, yeah. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you will have questions, let me know. So upcoming streams for me and the Messy Desk on Thursday. I'm gonna stream with Nathan. We're gonna edit the first movement of his sonata. We did the second movement a couple weeks ago. So tune in for that if you're interested in Shostakovian music on classical guitar, and if you're interested in learning
Speaking
about.
of which,
Sorry.
speaking of which is the Fall of Birds, which is next, is very
Ah,
Shostakovich.
there you go. Yeah. And that's going to be on Thursday. And well, you can also learn about Dorico, which is the editing software or the notation software Nathan uses. So if you're interested in notation
Oh,
software,
cool.
that's a good one. And then Saturday, I have Elina Chekan on, as Belarusian guitarist, and she's going to be doing a whole episode on some Belarusian music she's playing. So that'll be really cool. That's on Saturday. And Halim says, thank you for another great live. Thank you, Halim. I look forward to seeing you again. This is really nice having you here again. And Ricardo Saeb says, awesome conversation. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Ricardo. Much appreciated. If people have questions for Ben, put them in the chat now before we finish. But we're going to listen after this to one last piece that Ben plays. So, Ben, can you tell us about this Nikita Koshkin piece?
Yeah, and so to totally break it up, like it's the World Juniors, Canada versus Russia here, but so this is the Fall of Birds by Nikita Koshkin in 2 movements, and geez, like this piece really became what was just a suggestion from my teacher to like a really influential and very emotional piece to me. Given like the whole nature of it, obviously, like it was very spontaneous, and Koshkin, the title came to him in a dream, and then he handed Mikulka the toccata in like a meeting when they met for the first time in Russia, and then he said like, I want you to write more for me. I think there's something missing. I'd like a slower movement to precede this. And so then Koshkin would stay up for like 48 hours, no sleep, and finish this piece. And then a week later, Mikulka gave the premiere of Andante and Toccata, The Fall of Birds, which was the title that he later gave to both of these movements. And then something about a few days later, I'd love to know if the story is true, but Koshkin apparently visited a library, and he read a book about the apocalypse, and the last sentence was saying something along the lines of, and the birds fell to the earth. And so there's that sort of chilling nature that maybe in this case, well, we have lots of music that's reactive, like, the Penderecki Threnody for the victims of Hiroshima, but maybe this is a predictive piece, and not to sort of just say like, oh, look, we're in this COVID time again and the climate change and stuff like that, but like, and I think that when I found that out, I became a lot more emotionally attached, and I was able to really expose and really emit a lot of emotional stress from like just the overall climate that we live in politically and climate, and that I find I'm able to really to create this piece into something that like I really hope resembles a lot of energy, but a lot of drama. And so, and that's definitely, I love a little bit of drama in my programming as well, and I hope going forward to program a lot more Koshkin in the future, and I think that this sort of subject matter of the piece, the apocalypse and predictive, that's starting to really put again some fireworks for maybe whatever my next new music project is going to be. I live in this really inspiring classical close-knit community where we have advanced choral groups, chamber music groups start programming concerts about earth and the environment and picking music about like the elements and stuff. And so potentially this piece would start that for me and bringing that to the guitar. And so I hope that obviously, again, like with like the Kavanaugh preludes, I hope to put this in my regular concert program and hopefully perform it for Koshkin one day, because and I think that it's, again, like while I love to propel and promote the Canadian community, it's great to see what other living composers are doing out there, because somehow in all of this this online stuff, I feel like we've become more close knit as a guitar community, and we can learn lots still, but obviously nothing will replace what we have had then before. But I think that it just resembles a lot of growth somehow in this time, because I never really started this piece until like last summer, and so then it's and so I'm really curious to see again like the lifetime journey, like I said, how this piece is going to sound in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And so hopefully you enjoy this recording. It's definitely a bit of a flashbang ending, but I'm definitely yeah, thanks once again, and hopefully it provides a little bit of a different insight on the kinds of music you've already heard today too.
Cool. Mitchell says thanks for an interesting show. Thank you, Mitchell Kotansky, for being here. It's awesome to see you again. And it's nice to see Ioana here again, and Joseph and Adam and everybody. And thank you, Ben, so much for being on and for sharing your music and the CD. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to, there's one more comment to say, but it's fled from my mind. So we're going to listen to Koshkin, and thanks again for coming on. And everybody check out the CD. Oh, I was going to say, people, if you want to see an awesome concert after this, Adam Cicoletti's playing for the Victoria Guitar Society. If you search the Victoria Guitar Society, you can find their website and find the way to get into the concert. So please go watch that after this. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Ben. And we're going to sign off, everyone, and we're going to listen to this Nikita Koshkin piece. So
Fantastic. Thank you once again, Michael, and thank you for all for coming.
Yeah. Ciao.